Shalom Aleichem, everyone. This is a big zchut once again to be part of this Hoshana Rabbah program. I just want to begin with a few thank yous. This is my third year speaking on Torah Anytime, but specifically for the Ohel Simcha Shul, Rabbi Chaimov and Yigal Davidoff, and of course the Chazaq and the holy Kol Yaakov brothers of Torah Anytime. It's a zchus to be part of this asifa, this kehillah, people who are oisek b'tzorchei tzibur be'emunah, and not just any tzorchei tzibur, but harbotzas ha'torah. It's a zchus to spend Hoshana Rabbah with this holy oil. That said, I was told that this year the program is looking to try and focus the kochos of the people listening in one direction. They spoke to Shmuel Kamenetsky, I'm sure you heard already, and he told the Olam to focus on Beinot L'Chavera and friendship. And they decided that we're looking to create friendship through, like we always do in Torah Anytime, through Torah. So I'll talk about it in the course of the shir again, but I wanted to start off, if I lose you in the middle, then at least you should have heard this pitch. The pitch is that we should reach out to our friends and that call someone and say, I want you to call me once a week before Shabbos, before Shabbat, with 1 2-minute Torah. Build friendship through reaching out, letting yourself be the receiver, empowering your friend to share something with you. People want to be givers, and to be a giver through Torah. This is the secret. This is the way to build chaverschaft and friendship. And if we can do that and reach out to our friends, a specific request, reach out to a friend and ask them to call you before, you'll call them, they'll call you before Shabbat with a 2-minute Torah. In that sense, okay, so let me begin the Dvar Torah. I've spoken the past few years, and I thought Hoshana Rabbah is it's a topic that's really the same theme every year. So I'm tempted to repeat a speech, but you can't do that, especially with a kehillah like this that remembers everything you say. They're not just here for entertainment, they're listening. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to build on 2 different shiurim, ideas that I've shared over the last year or two. But really, when I've come to think about it over time, I've realized that these 2 shiurim are opposites. They literally are it's a stira. What I'm trying to explain in one Torah is the opposite of what I'm sharing in the old Torah. So I'm going to do a shorter version of each of those ideas. And then this year for Hoshana Rabbah, the Hosafa, the addition that I want to add, is I want to show how Hoshana Rabbah is really making shalom between these 2 opposing ideas. And this way, even if you heard maybe one of the ideas that I said, I'm going to give you another idea, which is the opposite. And the real goal is that now this year we should grow, which is really the goal. The goal is not to repeat things. It's nice to say, to say old Torah and to the new Torah. The best thing is to build on the past, to say the Torah and to take it to the next level. So we're not starting from scratch every year. I always say the word of what we build in Torah, we build with avanim. You go to a Beit Olam, you go to a cemetery, you put a stone on the grave. The reason is because the secret of the meaning of Even is a contraction of the words Av and Ben, father and son. Ben means livnot, a binyan, you're building. But to build with stones is a unique kind of building. You can build with bricks, a leveina. A leveina is a brick. You're just building, leveina is lebinyan, to build with. An Even, though, is a contraction of not just the word Ben, to build, but also the word Av. Because an Even, a brick is a new creation. I just made it and now I'm building. An Even is part of creation. It always was. And we're building on the past. We have the past. We're not starting from a fresh slate. I stand on the shoulders of that came before me, on the Mesorah of my Avot, and I take it, I'm the next link in the chain. And this is the Mahalach of Torah. It was given to Moshe and Sinai, and Masruah, Yeshua is Canaan. So I want to take my previous Torah and build on it for you here today. So here are the 2 divrei Torah that I wanted to build on. Number 1, we have a beautiful idea. The Torah tells us, halacha, that when you had the Mizbeach in the Beit HaMikdash, in the basement, they had a Mizbeach, an altar, and the law of the Torah is, Lo sa'aleh b'ma'alot al mizbechi. You cannot rise on don't climb the Mizbeach with steps. You have to have a ramp, a keves. There was a ramp, and the Kohanim used to go up the ramp to get to the top of the Mizbeach. Why not? Lo saleh b'ma'alot ha-mizbechi asher lo sigale ervatcha alav. So you shouldn't expose your erva to the Mizbeach. So it's a little bit hard to understand what the pashut pshat is in that. Like, why, where is the gilui erva on the Mizbeach? First of all, walking in a ramp, it's hard to figure out technically what the difference in posture is. But more importantly, the Kohanim wore michnasayim, they wore pants. They walked up, there was no exposure of anything on the Mizbeach. So I'm sure there are many answers. I want to give an answer that's more of a metaphorical idea. That what does it mean to climb something with a ramp? So I'll give you a mashal. The mashal is, everybody's been to Eretz Yisrael. Sometimes you go with a group, and one of the classic things you do in Eretz Yisrael is you go to Masada. And on Masada, the group, we come before sunrise and we climb up the path up the mountain, the snake path. It's a grueling adventure. And you start in the morning and you climb. It's not easy. It's a very steep mountain. That's why they built it there. It was a safe fortress. It was impossible to climb the mountain. And today we climb up this ramp. Now, there's always one guy in the group who looks at the ramp and goes, there's no way I'm climbing up this ramp. And there's a cable car, and he sneaks off and he takes the cable car. And when he, that guy, when he gets to the top, the whole group is there. They just went through this experience. The group gets closer, and it makes the trip more chashuv. You get to the top. There's nothing like being on top of Masada when you did it, be a dayim, you worked. The guy who took the cable car, he has pusha. He knows he's a fraud. Maybe he pours his canteen over his head, so he looks a little sweaty, so nobody knows that he didn't really do it. But you can always tell, in the group picture on top of Masada, you can always tell which guy that is. He does one of two things. Either, if he's honest, he's the guy like in the corner of the picture, like curled up, like afraid to. He doesn't feels like he really doesn't belong there. But unfortunately, more likely, he's the guy in the middle of the picture with the biggest face and the biggest arms, overcompensating for his guilt by acting all geschmack. He's the party, he's the life of the party. But this is what people do when they do fraud, when they're not really in it. So either you're ashamed and you sneak off to the corners, the fringes, and you live on the fringes, or you live in the middle in an overly dramatic fashion, and you make yourself into this big thing. So this is how I want to explain lo salad and ma'alot on this. That whatever achievements, whatever you're trying to reach in life, you have to do it with a ramp. Because the nature of a ramp is a ramp hits every single point in the incline. There's no gaps. When you climb on a ramp, it means that every spot you actually conquered. When you grow through life, when you actually climb the mountain, then the experience you have on top is shleimut. You can look down at your journey and you can smile and you can do a deep laugh. Look what I did. But when you do it with a cable car, when you take jumps, when you jump and you don't actually cross every step, then you're exposed and you're vulnerable because you didn't really do it. And someone knows you have a secret. Your achievements aren't really earned and you're vulnerable. And this is what the Torah is telling us, that when you want to climb in ruchliyut, you want to get close to Hashem, don't do it with steps. Don't do it with jumps. You have to do it with a ramp. If you do, asher lo sigale ervatcha alav, that you shouldn't expose, you shouldn't be exposed. Your glaring flaws, the parts of your life that weren't earned are your vulnerabilities, and you're exposed. If you want to live a life where you're not exposed and you feel free and guiltless and shameless, your achievements have to be with a ramp. And that's the idea of a mizbeach, and it's a beautiful idea. Most people understand this idea. It's not a hard idea to understand. Men definitely understand this idea. We don't like to ask directions. Somebody gives me a riddle, I feel bad. I always feel bad they give me a riddle because they're planning on doing something. I'm not leaving till I figure it out. And they want to give you hints because they're getting nervous. And I'm not letting anyone give me a hint. We want to accomplish things. We want, everybody would rather earn money than to borrow money. This is how life is. We understand the idea of a ramp, and true achievement is a ramp. So that's the first idea, and it's an important idea, and it's nobody would argue that it's not a true idea. That achievements in life have to be done rung by rung, step by step. It's constant growth without any cheating, without any borrowing, without anything that's not legitimate. I have a different idea which seems to show the opposite. And you know, I'll tell it to you in two ways because this is the central theme of Hoshana Rabbah. And it seems to be that that there are other ways to achieve things in life. The Torah doesn't always demand on us to accomplish things properly and directly and to climb ladders. And I'll show it to you in two ways. First, this year, and this year was an interesting year. I'll tell you, I'll make it practical. I'm sitting here, I'm giving you the shir from Mexico. I'm here in Mexico for Sukkot. We just went through a hurricane. And, we survived Baruch Hashem a hurricane. I'll go off on a tangent. I'll just say the people here were upset that we didn't get to sit in the sukkah because of the hurricane. And I was telling the few people I was talking to that, you know, you shouldn't be so upset. I think that what we did was almost lechatchila, that we didn't have a sukkah. Why? Because what's the whole idea of sukkah? The whole idea of the sukkah is zecher to the ananei hakavod, the clouds of glory in the midbar. What was the purpose of the clouds? So most people don't realize this, but there were two clouds, right? There was the ananei amud esh and an amud ana. There was a pillar of fire and a pillar of cloud. And if you think about it, they have opposite functions. The pillar of fire, what it does is it's dark and it creates light. When the world is dark, you need light. When you're sad, you need chizuk. When you're broken, you need to be picked up. There's one part of life which is lighting up the darkness. And that one everyone understands. The other one's a little harder to understand. The other one is that sometimes when it's too light, you need a little shade. A little bit too much joy can break you. We get Vayishman Yeshurun Vayivat. When Klal Yisrael gets fat, things are too good, we kick. That's what the pasuk says in Hazim. Sometimes, you know, bracha leads to not wonderful places. This is why on Sukkot we say Kohelet. We're going to say Kohelet on Yom Tov because it's sobering. The simcha of harvesting your crop and feeling safe is we're better off when we're not feeling so safe. A little bit of vulnerability. And this is why we go in the sukkah. The sukkah is meant to make you, if it's too sun, you need a little shade. Not only you need silta meruba mechamta, you need more shade than sun. The way a Jew lives is, again, chas v'shalom, not to live in the darkness. If there's darkness, then you need light. But if it's too bright, you need a little darkness. We live in the middle, in the hut of the sukkah, which is shaded. And it's not dark, but not bright. And there's the humility to living in this vulnerable place, which is exactly what I said, why we thought the whole idea of the Ananei HaKavod was we had lechatchila. We didn't have sukkah. Our sukkahs were blown down or dismantled because they would have been weapons flying around. There's a lot of damage here. But everybody was in their rooms. We were the only hotel in the whole country over here that was the whole area that wasn't evacuated. And because we're going to put 440 Americans. So we're sitting here, and the Ananei HaKavod, the real Ananei HaKavod, came with such kavod. Wow, you never saw kavod like that. 140-mile-an-hour winds, destroying everything. And the vulnerability that you feel in a hurricane, you don't need a zecher Ananei HaKavod. You don't need to recreate vulnerability. We lived, children, people were crying, and people lived with a vulnerability. This is the real sukkah. We had, Hashem showed us that his kavod, his majesty, his power in his clouds. And anyone here, if you're here in my program, you're listening, and you didn't hear me tell you this, listen to the Chazaq. Don't be upset. This is the best sukkahs you ever had. You'll never feel, hopefully you should never again feel the vulnerability you feel now. It should be enough vulnerability for a lifetime. Okay, besides the fact that also I was watching all the palm trees swinging in the wind, and I realized, you know what's going on? Every palm tree has a lulav on top. Hashem is doing na'anuim for us. We don't have to shake the lulav. I sat on the porch in 140 miles an hour winds watching the trees shaking in all four directions. Anna Hashem Hoshana. It was magnificent. Okay, I don't know why I did that, but I'll make it personal. So you'll know what year I gave this year. Okay, so let me get back on track. So first I told you the idea that in the ramp, in the Beis Hamikdash, you had a ramp, and a ramp is the idea that you have to achieve things through constant, steady growth. That there's no such thing as jumping. It's too wrong to be jumping. There's no shortcuts. Life is to go Daf Yomi, one step at a time, 3 tefillot a day. The way you become a holy person is step by step by step. I spoke Rosh Hoshana and the first days of Yom Tov also. This is similar drasha, because this year when Yom Tov falls on Shabbos, we don't blow shofar and we don't shake lulav. So how do you explain to someone who waits a whole year for shofar and a whole year for lulav that you bought your magnificent esrog, you have it, come to shul in awe and you're waiting and we don't blow the shofar? So here's how I explained the significance of a Yom Tov without its proper, its device, its tool, its kli, its vessel. We read the story of Yishmael. Yishmael is Avraham sent Yishmael away because he was Nitzachik. It says that Sarah Batera, Sarah is Ben Hagar HaMitzris Nitzachik. Sarah sees the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, and he's laughing. And she says, Lo Yira, that this kid can't inherit my son. He's a bad influence on Yitzchak, and he has to go. And Avram says, I want to send him. And Hashem says, listen to Sarah. Avram sends Yishmael and Hagar away. He gives them food and water, and they go on their way. And here's what it says. Vatichlu hamayim minachemes vatashleches hayeled tachas achad hazichim. This was the Kriyat Torah Hoshana, the most beautiful tune of Kriyat, touches you in the Shana. Right? And Yishmael is in the bushes. Hagar thinks he's dying, and right? So what does she do? Right? She goes away from Yishmael. She puts him in the bushes, and she goes, Harcheik kintachavei keshes ki omiro al ered mois hayoled vatiso es koilo vateif. She puts the son in the bushes, and she goes far away, and she lifts her voice to Shemayim, crying. Vayishma Elokim el koil anar. Hashem hears the sound of the boy crying, the sound of the nar. Basher Husham, Hashem hears Yishmael as he is then, and he saves them, and he shows them a well, and he lives, and he becomes the father of all the countries, all the children of Yishmael. Everyone knows the story, we just read it. I have a big question. My big question is that the entire point of this story is that Hashem hears the sounds of Yishmael. Basher Husham, as he is. He's going to become a Rasha, he's going to become a terrorist, they're going to bomb preschools and airplanes. But right now, he was crying to Hashem, Hashem listens to him. That's what this, and even that's what his name is, right? Yishmael. Hashem hears. The whole story of Yishmael is about that Hashem hears the bechia, the cries. And that's an unbelievable chizuk for Rosh Hashanah. No matter what level we're on, Hashem listens to us. It's a beautiful idea. The only problem is, if that's the story, then the most important words in the story are missing. The Torah doesn't do things like that. What's the most important words in the story? Yishmael is dying of thirst. Hagar goes and cries, and Hashem hears the sound of the cry as he is. The koach of tefillah, that he davens and he cries, and Hashem hears him, and Hashem answers him, even though he wasn't going to be the greatest person. What's the problem? The Torah never said that Yishmael cries. His entire name is that Hashem hears me. You don't think it would have made sense to tell us that he cried? It says the story was about Hagar. Hagar cries. Vatisas kolabatev. She cries. It doesn't say anything about him. There's not one word about him. But we find, I guess you can deduce from the fact that Hashem heard him cry, and Hashem heard the koil hanar, that he must have cried. But wouldn't it have been important for that to be in the pasuk? That's the most important words that we're waiting to hear over here. He cried and Hashem heard. There's no shmiyah without the bechiyah. So what are we saying here? So the answer, I think, is very deep. And to understand the answer, you have to go back to why he was thrown out. It says that he was mitzachik. Yishmael laughed. Yishmael laughed, and that's why he threw him out. Does that make sense? Avraham laughs before Yitzchak is born. Sarah laughs before Yitzchak is born. Yitzchak's name is laughter. Everything in his life is laughter. Avimelech looks out the window and he sees Yitzchak mitzachik and Ishto. He's laughing. Everything, his davening in the field is even called sicha. Everything's right. When she's born, she says that tzchok osoli elokim. Everything about Yitzchak is tzchok. To the point that his name becomes tzchok. And then Yishmael is mitzachik one time and they throw him out. Is that fair? What the kind of double standard? People go off the derech when they see double standards. This should have been a terrible thing. Oh, everybody else, everyone, his family, they can laugh, right? So what's the answer? Chas v'shalom, it's not like that. So what's the real story? So I'll ask one last question, and then I'll tie it together. The question is actually, why is Yitzchak's name laughter? Yitzchak's probably the most serious person in the whole Torah. Maybe Tanakh. What's his midah? His trait is called Pachad Yitzchak. The fear, the English translation is using the worst word, dread. The dread of Isaac. Pachad Yitzchak. And his name is laughter? Is that a joke? Joke? So laughter, so what is it? The answer is so powerful. The answer is no, exactly as we're saying. You know who can laugh? The only person who can truly laugh is the person who's total din, who every single thing in his life was earned, who woke up early and worked hard. The guy who every single thing in his life was hard work, that guy can laugh. Only that guy. Because laughter is the expression of total guiltlessness, no shame. I'm secure. If I cheated or I jumped and I took shortcuts, I took the cable car off Masada, I can't really laugh. The person who everything's legitimate, there's no scandals, and there's no skeletons in any closets. So he can freely laugh because nobody knows, there's no secret, he can't be exposed. He's impenetrable. That's tzchok. The proof is that the guy who laughs, like the guy who's embarrassed or ashamed, we have this sheepish laugh, the fake laugh that we do that sort of masks my insecurity. When I want to show you that I'm unfazed, that you didn't embarrass me, I laugh. Because laughter is the sign of confidence. Only Yitzchak can laugh. Because what it is a real laugh. Children laugh. Little kids giggle. Giggling is the expression of an innocent person with no shame, who's never done anything wrong. And they're optimistic, they just laugh. Every day is a Chol Hamoed trip. Waking up early, bouncing, giggly, giddy, that's children. But how do you do that when you're 50 years old? Only a Yitzchak could still be laughing at his age because he didn't do anything to be embarrassed of all those years. And all of his accomplishments were climbed with a ramp, not with a shortcut, not with cable cars. So only Yitzchak can laugh. So that's an affirmation of my vote on the ramp, laughter of Yitzchak. So what's Yishmael? It's another laugh. Yishmael is the first laugh is the giggle, the sign of innocence. But Yishmael laughs another laugh. It's the modern laugh we see all over the world today. The left making fun of married families with children and religion and spirituality. I call it the cackle. It's the laugh of Leitzanim. The laugh of the person who also, when they were young, had dreams, big plans and big expectations. But the person who took too many cable cars, too many shortcuts, and all the bounty in his house was unearned, stolen, faked. That person can't look at the world with his eyes wide. He can't look in the mirror. He can't enjoy the beauty of his life. And what he does when he thinks of his dreams is he has to learn how to do this sneering, cackling laugh, a laugh that demeans everything, that it's a way to mask your pain. But I so much wanted to feel pure. That laugh's a very, very deep laugh, but it's a different laugh. There's the giggle and the cackle, the laugh of the innocent, the laugh of Yitzchak, and the sneering laugh of the Letz, trying to make fun. You know, the guy who drops out of yeshiva and he's sitting on the stoop, watching his old friends walk to yeshiva, little boys with big, huge Gemara that weigh 40 pounds, Kovetz and Farshim, and he's laughing. What are you doing? Come join us, chill with me, we're having fun, why are you doing all this stuff? That laugh is the laugh of Yishmael. And that's why Yishmael has to be thrown out. It's a laugh that destroys dreamers. The giggling of a child, the laughter of justice is the most beautiful sound in the world. And the sneering, cackling laugh that wipes joy and hope from people's faces, shames the people who deserve to feel pride. That's the ugliest sound in the world. And that's why Yishmael lo yirash, he can inherit Yitzchak. And why Hashem says, listen to Sarah. She's right. So this is Yishmael's laugh, and that answers our question of why is Yitzchak called laughter and Yishmael laughs. There's two different laughters, the giggle and the cackle. So now we can go back to our original question. It's so powerful. Yishmael, b'fatichlu hamayim benachemes, the water gets used up from the thermos, from the flask, chemes, And she throws him into the bushes, and she goes away and she cries. And Hashem hears the sound of the child. So we asked, why doesn't it say that he cried? Hashem hears the sound of the child. It never said he cried. So do you know what the answer is? Can you figure out the answer yet? Oh, the answer, you know what the answer is? I don't know if it's beautiful or terrible. I don't know if it's both. The Torah doesn't say it because it already told us what Yishmael does when the going is tough. When life doesn't go the way he wants, we know what he does. It doesn't say he cried because he didn't cry. It already told us that he's a Chazaq. When life doesn't go the way he wants, he cackles. He's probably sitting in the bushes, dying of thirst, saying, what a messed up world. It's evil. There's no justice. There's people who laugh in their moments of tsar. That's his coping mechanism to deal with his suffering and his frustrated dreams and the life that he wanted, which is not going to happen. Some people cry, but some people can't bring themselves to cry, and they cackle, they laugh, and they sneer. And that's Yishmael. The Torah told us that's what Yishmael does. He's a mitzachik. So then understand this. So what does it mean when it says that Hashem, that Hashem heard the sound of the child? You know what it means? Hashem heard the sound of his laughter. Hashem listened to the laughter of Yishmael, even though he wasn't crying, and he was putting on a tough face and gritted his teeth and a firm jaw, stoic, laughing at the world. Yishmael lekim el kol hanar, asher husham. You know what asher husham means? Not as he was then. Hashem saw him as he really was. The kid was laughing. He's a sad, broken person inside. He's not brave enough to cry because he's afraid no one will answer. So all he can do is laugh. What Hashem does is Hashem hears the boy crying, laughing, not crying. Hashem hears in the laughter. Everyone else in the world hears a rasha. Everyone else hears a person laughing in Torah mitzvahs. And the Torah tells us that Hashem hears the voice, Yishmael. Hashem hears. He hears the sound that you're not even saying. This is what we say. Hashem, we say, the Hegyon Libi Lefanecha. Right? Let the words of my mouth be you should want the words of my mouth, the Hegyon Libi, and the thoughts of my heart. What's the difference between Imrei Fi and Hegyon Libi? Imrei Fi is what I'm actually saying if I'm crying or I'm begging. Hegyon Libi is I didn't say it. It's in my heart. I didn't have the guts to say it. Hashem should hear that. My Hegyon Libi should be Lefanecha. And it goes even further. Not only is it not when you say the words and it's just in your heart, even when you laugh and make fun or are angry, Hashem hears it. That's the lesson of Yishmael. That the Tzaddik, Yitzchok, Tzaddik lives, and Tzaddik cries, and Tzaddik begs Hashem. But Hashem could even hear the person who's laughing. Such a heavy thing. Yishmael is laughing and Hashem hears the laughter. Similar idea. Not that you need a similar idea, but it's Hoshana Rabbah. I'm going to tell you that. My Hoshana Rabbah word from last year. So fits in. Is that the Torah tells us that I want to explain the Arava. Why do we beat the Arava on the ground? What is the beating of an Arava? Arava is it's a mitzvah. And it's a sad thing that every negative medrash we say about Arava has no tam, it has no reach. It's a broken thing in Arava. So we beat it on the ground. That's what we do to broken people. So somebody else should clap it. So here's the story of the Arava. The story of the Arava is that the Torah describes that Eretz Yisrael is not like Eretz Mitzrayim. This is the Torah's definition of Israel. It's not like Eretz Mitzrayim that you water it. You see, Eretz Mitzrayim has a Ya'ar, it has the Nile, and they plant all their crops around the Nile. Israel doesn't have any Niles. In Israel, you need rain. And the problem is like this, that a farmer can do everything he needs to do. He can buy the best seeds and the best cows and the best plow, and he can work from morning to night for months, tilling his field and sowing his field and pruning his field. But you know what happens? If it doesn't rain, he will see nothing. There's one thing he can control. He can do everything he wants to do. But if he doesn't have rain, you won't see any produce. It's very hard. A farmer has to go to sleep at night vulnerable and wondering. He has to lie in his bed, davening to Hashem. This is what the pasuk says. You have to wait till Hashem is Doresh Ota. Eretz Yisrael needs rain. You have to need Hashem to send you his bracha. The problem is that most people can't live like this. It's very hard to dream if you don't know it'll come true. It's called being vulnerable, and being vulnerable, you can be rejected. So much easier to say who needs it, or do what Mitzrayim does. Mitzrayim plans only around the Ya'or. Anything the Ya'or will give me, I'll have. But if it's too far from the Ya'or and I can't get the water from the Ya'or, there's not enough water in the Ya'or, I will not plant it. Because I can't put myself at the mercy of rain, because then I will not be able to sleep. This is how we understand the difference between Mitzrayim and Israel. It's not about water and rain, it's about vulnerability. It's the ability to dream for things that aren't here. The emunah in Hashem. Right? We say, emunah titecha. That's hilchas zroim. Every order of Mishnayot is after a different line in that pasuk. Emunah is seeds. Seeds need emunah. Planting, the farmer lives in emunah. There's no bigger ma'amin than the farmer. He'll have nothing without Hashem. In order for him to wake up in the morning and work, he needs to know there's a Borei Olam. Mitzrayim can't do that. Now, if you understand this about Mitzrayim, then you'll understand what Rabbah is. Because the Torah, what does the Torah call Aravot? The Torah calls the Arava Arvei Nachal, willows of the creeks, of the streams. And Nachal is a brook willows. It grows by the banks of the brook and gets irrigated by the waters of the brook, and that's what feeds the Arava. It doesn't also doesn't need rain. What Mitzrayim is to geography, Aravot are to botany. It's the plant version of Mitzrayim. It doesn't need anything. It can sleep at night without any worries. It doesn't need any emunah. But you know what happens to an Arava? What happens when you live like this? What happens if in life you only embrace things that are in your hands already? Things that are guaranteed and in the bank. Only if your ducks are in a row and your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. You can't long for something that's not here yet. What happens then is you, like an Arava, you have no tam and no reach, no smell and no taste. Character and depth comes from longing. If you live your life safely around the Ya'or, then you'll never have any character. There'll be nothing about you deep and powerful. And it's the same exact thing with Mitzrayim. Paro has a dream, and there's no one in the whole country who can explain Paro's dreams. Because in Mitzrayim, they don't know what dreams are. Nobody dreams. The dream is to be vulnerable, to long for something that's not here. Mitzrayim, no. If the Ya'or doesn't provide it, we can't want it. It might not come. I might feel pain. So Mitzrayim doesn't know what dreams are, and the Arava doesn't know what depth is. And Paro has to go find the Jewish kid from jail. He knows what a dream is. He can translate his dreams. This is the secret of the Arava and Mitzrayim. And this is why the last step is the beating of the Arava and the beating of the Arava and the beating of Mitzrayim. The makot of Mitzrayim, the makkah of the Arava are the same thing. They're both the tsar of living in the darkness and feeling nothing is so great that we hit the bottom. The Arava we're saying the Arava has nothing. Is when the Arava feels its tsar of being alone without dreams, it gets so bad, the lack of dreams, that eventually that the Arava, I'll tell you the punchline in a second, but the Arava lives without anything. And Mitzrayim, the makot of Mitzrayim, is that the point is that when you live without longing, your life ends up being so brittle and so dry, and everything gets lost. And then the Arava becomes the holiest thing in the world. This is the Medrash tells us that there are 7 levels of Shemayim. There's Shemayim, Shmei Shemayim, Shchokim, Ma'oim, Mechoim, Zvul, and the highest level is called Aravos. Aravos is the high, we say Rochiv Ba'aravos. So Hashem rides on Aravos. And that means Hashem's above the 7 levels of Shemayim. So the question is how does the Aravos become the highest thing in the world? The Aravos is the lowest thing. It has no tam, no reach. It doesn't have any emunah. Because when there's 2 ways to climb a ladder, one way is to climb steadily, to climb a ramp, to go up every day, incrementally up the ramp. And the last and the worst, but the other way is that you don't climb the ramp. Is that you live with nothing, and there's no satisfaction, and there's no joy, and there's no confidence. There's only brokenness and shame, no tam and no reach and no dreams. And that loneliness and that sorrow gets so bad That's you have nothing, and then you break and you turn to the Borei Olam. It's a shortcut that gets you to the top of the ladder. You go from Arava, we beat it on the ground. You hit the bottom, and you jump instantly to the top. It's a shortcut that gets you places. The guy who climbs the ladder has to go from Shemayim to Shnei Shemayim to Shchakim. You have to climb your ramp. We said you have to climb ramps. Life is about ramps. But then there's a stira, this Torah. This other Torah is the opposite. That there's something called Haravot, that you beat it on the floor. It has nothing. And then it goes instantly. It's the highest level of Shemayim. What do we do with our Ravos after we beat them? You put them on top of the Aron. It goes in 1 second. It's a cable car. And this is the question. Do you have to do the work, or can you laugh like Yishmael? All the people who are crying get to Shemayim, but Yishmael laughs and he also gets to Shemayim. There are you people who work their whole lives climbing and doing avodah learning, and this guy, all he does is he hits the bottom. Which one is it? Does the Torah want my old Torah of the ramp, to climb the ramp, to do everything yourself, and to sit like the laughter of Yitzchak, earned everything? Or can you get away with doing nothing? The Arava has nothing. The Arava is broken. So how do you get to the top? He gets magic. It's a cable car. It seems like the Torah is advocating a ramp. At the same time, the Torah advocates a cable car. The Mizbeach represents the ramp, and the Arava represents the cable car. And how do we reconcile it? So in the last few minutes, I want to tell you the punchline. How do you reconcile it? It's a real kasha. Right? We tell the Bachar in the yeshiva to climb, to work hard, to learn. And then if all the guys who drop out can all suddenly get to the top, so then no, it's not fair, right? If there's cable cars who want to climb mountains. So the answer is extremely deep. You know what they did on Hoshana Rabbah? What did they do with the Aravot? They did something with the Aravot. People don't know. Today we don't do it. This is what the Mishnah says. They took these very long Aravot, maybe 11 amot long, and they leaned them on all 4 sides of the Mizbeach. And the Mishnah says the Aravot used to lean over and like cover from all 4 sides the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach is very tall. They put it on top of the base of the Mizbeach, so it's already off the ground. And then the tops, not only did they go over the Mizbeach, they leaned over it. So visualize Mizbeach surrounded by Aravot shading the Mizbeach. We have to understand the imagery of this, because this is where they two meet. It's not just I said a word on Mizbeach and I said a word on Aravot. The Torah puts them together. On Hoshana Rabbah, there was the joining of the Arava and the ram. So what is the message? And I think the message is the biggest point in the world, is that when the Arava hits the ground, it changes its name. My question was, I have to work hard to climb the ramp. How can I have a shortcut to hit the bottom and then go to the top? Not fair. So the answer is that Arava changes its name. What happens when the person lives with nothing and no dreams and pain and loneliness, doesn't long for anything? So you end up dried out, single, alone. You don't have jobs. Now, lovely Torah. I didn't go to yeshiva because I didn't want to compete. I didn't want to have to learn so hard. I didn't do shidduchim because I didn't want to get rejected. I didn't get a job because I didn't want to get fired. I run away from everything because I'm normally vulnerable. So that person lives with loneliness because he can't face Yishma. He couldn't cry. He wasn't able to cry. So again, Hashem heard him cry. It's not fair. He never cried. What about the person who cries? So this is the difference. The Arava is not a shortcut. What happens when you beat the Arava on the ground? It stops being called an Arava and it becomes called Hoshana. Save me. The opposite of everything it was. The entire point of the Arava is I don't want to need anything. I don't want to be dependent. I don't want to ever say words of need. But the Tsar got so great that it just breaks and it screams out, Hoshana, Ana, Hashem, Hoshiana. They're called Hoshanot. Do you understand the change? There's no greater change in personality in the world. The guy the coolest guy in the world, he just rolls his eyes and laughs at everything. Never invested, doesn't care. And all of a sudden now he says, save me. Don't think for 1 second that the Arava is a shortcut. There's no shortcut. There's only a ramp. But it's taller than the ramp on Mizbeach is the Aravos that lean over. The hardest avodah in the entire world is the avodah to say, save me. It's not, it's no cable car. You can do the entire avodah of humanity in one shot. This is a ramp. These are ravos to lean on the Mizbeach. Don't think it's a steer to the Mizbeach. This is the crown of the Mizbeach. You know what the greatest ramp is? The hardest job you can do? The greatest climb is to get rid of all your fears and insecurities and scream out as loud as you can, Hoshana, Hashem, save me. I need you. That's the avodah liyah, the vulnerability before the Borei Olam. Say, Hashem, save me. Our kasha was that how can we talk about ramps and shortcuts? How can one guy has to climb over a life and one guy goes from the bottom to the top in 2 seconds? And the answer is the bottom to the top in 2 seconds. You don't get from the ground to the top of the Aron Kodesh, the Rabbah. It's not a cable car. It's the most grueling, hardest avodah in the world. We should find that koch. To end this with the idea of friendship, like Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky Shlita told us to do, is everybody wants friends. Everyone wants to be loved. But it's very, very hard to need somebody, to be motivated. See, when you say you need someone, you can get hurt. You have to be able to peel off the defense mechanisms, the gritted teeth, the sharp jaw, firm, stoic arava, and peel off those layers, the hardest avodah in the world. And this eitzah to do it through Torah is the magic way to do it. You say, I need you. I need to hear your Torah. You call me next Shabbos, share your Torah with me. It's a little sugar to make the vulnerability easier. May we be zoche to turn our need nothing cool, safe arovot, to raw, vulnerable, because there's no feeling like that, to live on top of the aura. Rochev barovot. Hashem sits on top of the vulnerable. May we be zoche to short avodah, but it's not a cable car. It's the quickest trip up the ramp. May we be zoche to live on the top of the Mizbeach, on top of the Aron. This view is magnificent. May we all be zoche together, mamish together, friends, vulnerable, we get close to Hashem and close to others. Solves all the vulnerability, the ability to need someone, solves every problem you have. You'll be one with Hashem, you'll be one with yourself. You look in the mirror and you'll be one with all your neighborhoods and friends and your relatives. And may you be zoche to Shmini Atzeret, Hashem should make it rain, because we need rain. We're vulnerable. Hoshana, send us all of our brachot. Good Yom Tov.